Good morning. You got caught with my bedhead. Good morning and welcome back to the Football Terrace. Hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribing. Loads to talk about and go through this morning. We are looking at Alexander Isak, who is looking at legal action after claims of potential max fixing were made yesterday in the mainstream media against him. And we're looking at that and the online abuse that man is taking. Also, could Pep Guardiola be sacked? Could Pep be sacked in the coming weeks if results continue? LB thinks he could go at the end of the season. 2 defeats on the bounce. Their next games are against Man United and Arsenal back-to-back. Could it be 3? Could it be 4 defeats? Could that lead to his exit? Plus, Onana leaving Manchester United is a distinct possibility. With the Saudi clubs looking at him, Man United could look to move him on imminently after the shake-ups that we have had in goal. But good morning to everyone that's tuning in. I hope you're all well. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching from around the world. And have I spelt Guardiola's name wrong? People keep saying we have. We'll get it done. I don't know what that spelling is, but there we go. You all know what I mean. You all know what I mean. Morning. Good attention. I've just bought a cat. Well done to you. Let me know where you're all watching from around the world also. It's always nice to know that we have such an international group of people tuning in. It's humbling in multiple ways. So welcome, everybody. Hello to everybody. Hope you're all good. Morning, Red. Hope you're well. Morning to John. I see you. Phrase. Jamie, loads of you. Michael, big up yourself for becoming a brand new member of the Football Terrace as well. And where are people watching from today? Look at this, Sweden. Look at the different, look at the dichotomy here. You've got Sweden, Kuwait, Wigan, Norway, Zimbabwe, Silicon Bay. I don't believe you're in Silicon Bay, but anyway, I don't know why. South Africa, Kenya. Love it, man. Love it. Lots of Brighton. I was in Brighton a little while ago. We're going to delve into these stories. We've got some clips to play. We've got some snippets for you. But I would love the like button here. I'd love this stream shared as well, please. We're going to open up the lines for you to call in later in the show as well, as we always do. And we've had a lot of great feedback from you all over the course of the summer. And we'll be looking to do far more live shows and call-in shows throughout the course of the season. Let me just take a sip. Here of my water. There we go. Got to go back to the gym today though as well. Hello. Hey, people watching from London. There we go. Look, we're going to start off with, actually, I'm going to come on to the Isak story a little bit later because I want the audience to build up. But I wanted to start actually with the Onana situation. Could Onana be on his way to Saudi Arabia? Well, the short answer for that is absolutely yes, he could be. And I think it needs to happen because I want to make sure I say this in the right way. What Onana did when he returned to Manchester United was an abomination. And if Manchester United were to have collapsed, capitulated, or bowed down to his demands, the culture would never be fixed. And I always, last week when we lost to Grimsby, in my hour of darkness, I said I lost faith. And a lot of that remains true. But winning football matches, buying better players and improving can reinstall the faith. It's like Pandora's box opening. All the bad stuff comes out, but there's always hope remaining. And where would we be without hope as football fans? We'd have quit and stopped watching a long time ago because all our clubs have been through bad and horrible periods. But Onana came back to Manchester United and did something that I thought was such an indication of the old sort of Man United under Ed Woodward, under that regime, which was, we have all these clauses in place, which were ignored by the mainstream media at the end of last season, because we essentially, yes, we didn't make European football. So there's a loss of revenue. We've had European football nearly every single season since Fergie. Yes, there would have been additional revenue if we'd have won that Europa League final and qualified for the Champions League. But clubs budget to not have European football. That's how they work their budgets out. And Man United, one smart thing we have done with a lot of our players that we've signed in recent years and in terms of the renewal of contracts, is we put in a 25% reduction in salaries and bonuses should we not be in Europe. So yes, we may get £100 million less in revenue, but we save tens of millions in not hosting the games, the cost of actually being in Europe, plus there's tens of millions of pounds saved in not paying out salary. So we do lose money, but it's never as gargantuan as they always put the revenue and not the net element of money that comes in. But what Onana did, if people are unaware, is they essentially came. What Onana did is he came back after the summer with a 25% reduction. Now, let's bear in mind that Onana is hugely responsible for Manchester United going out of the Champions League in his first season. The amount of points, I would say, in the last 2 years he's cost us in the league. If I'm being conservative, I'm saying 15. If I'm exaggerating slightly, I'm saying 30. But I think he's responsible, honestly, for around at least 20 points dropped. At least 20 points dropped in the Premier League through stupid penalties being given away, diving the wrong way, allowing crosses to just float into the back net. The mistakes from this man have been horrendous. He is as culpable as any other individual player for our recent downfall. 100%. And even when it comes to being in Europe, I think most competent Premier League goalkeepers save Spurs' goal. Stand on that. He came back this summer and asked for a pay rise. And why I build that story up and give you that full picture is he is massively culpable in our downfall. Massive mistakes even in the Europa League final. And because he got a pay decrease, because that was already in his contract, he had the audacity, he had the gall to ask for a pay rise. Now, for me, that just shows a bad mentality. Take your medicine. How is it that he's not aware that he is one of the leading causes of our problems? And I'm not allowing back three, back four system conversations because he was the same under both systems, both managers, 4 at the back, 3 at the back, zonal marking, hybrid marking. You know what I'm saying? No matter what the marking is. It could, Harry Potter's birthmark. It doesn't matter what the mark is. This man can't catch a ball. I don't think he can catch a cold. Genuinely. Can he catch a cold? That's the question we need to know the answer to. He had the audacity to ask for a pay rise. I'm so glad. And there are things to criticize Ineos about. There are things to still be skeptical about. But this is something I look at and say, well done, Ineos. Well done, Amorim, for realizing that rewarding failure with pay increases would damage the culture further. The culture in the football club, maybe it becomes irreversible at that point. If players start to say, hang on, you're ostracizing these players, we're trying to move in the right direction, we're trying to make the standards better, and you reward one of the worst performing players of the last decade with a new and improved deal. How would the rest of them feel that are on pay decreases, who actually played well last year? How would Mazwari feel? How would De Ligt feel? As an example, how would they feel? They've all lost money and actually had brilliant seasons, but yet one of the main culprits for the season being bad gets a pay rise. You can't do that. So the news this morning is that Man United may offload Andre Onana to the Saudi Pro League as part of a shake-up in their goalkeeping options, with the Saudi transfer window open until September the 23rd. And I hope we do. There's also options potentially in Turkey as well. As much as I'm not a fan of Bayender either, so I'm not in his camp and I'm not fighting for him. I'm not defending him. Of the two, I probably would prefer Bayender slightly. And if I'm being honest with you, probably the money. Bayender doesn't really cost us a lot, where Onana is on big wages. And if there was an opportunity, if we could sell them both. Make Tom Heaton the number 2 and promote an academy goalkeeper. If we could get money for both, move them on, They have no business being at Manchester United. They have absolutely no business whatsoever. They can't catch crosses. It's just, I've never known two goalkeepers at my club to be so bad and continue to get opportunities. And I'll be honest with you, both won't go over this international break. I don't think so. I actually am not sure if Lemans is going to actually start in goal against City or the next couple of games. If you read the briefings, I think Man United are going to see this through to fruition. I think he's going to come in and they're going to sit him on the bench as the number 2. And we're going to slowly bleed him in. And I felt this all along. I still believe it. And I see a comment here from Christian says he has to start. Christian, I agree he has to start, but I know what the club's going to do. And maybe I shouldn't out this, but I think it's a positive. He's the number 2. He's the number 2. He's a backup. He'll challenge, but he's a number 2. Look, he's on the bench. He's the number 2. He's the number 2. Oh, look, this keeper hasn't done so well. There's an opportunity. If we bring somebody in as a number 2 and they get an opportunity, they're supported. When young Aiden Heaven came in, now he is younger, okay? But I think the example holds water. When he came in, none of us thought he was a first-team signing. We all thought, I thought, come in, goes in the academy, we might flip him in a few years. I didn't know much about him. There wasn't a fanfare. But then he comes into some games because of injuries and nobody's going, come on in, lad. Show us what you're made of. It's, we support you no matter what. You weren't expected to play. Good luck. If we'd have brought him in and said, this young defender from Arsenal is the future, he's the truth, he's generational, there would have been a different pressure and expectation on his first game. And that is where I think Manchester United need to be mindful. And I think we're being smart is if we make a massive fanfare and noise, new number 1, he's an improvement. He's better than what we've got. Even if we believe all of this, don't make the noise. Play it down. Maybe don't start him for a game or 2. There's a risk in that, I know. But then when he comes in, I don't think the same pressure's on him. I don't think the same pressure is on him. Fergie did this with David De Gea. Started the first few games when he came, and there were some mistakes, young. So then Lindegaard started playing, and Fergie just kept on saying, listen, we don't have a number 1, essentially. Rotation, they're both playing. And then it took a lot of pressure off of David De Gea. There wasn't this focus on him as much, settled, and then went on to have 5, 6, 7 years as the best goalkeeper in the world at Manchester United. So I hope something similar follows for Lemans. But for me, getting rid of Onana is absolutely imperative. The attitude that he has is not what we need at the football club. Being that big of a failure and asking for a pay rise, for me, is absolutely unforgivable. Unforgivable professionalism or lack of professionalism. And Man United should be pushing him out the door. We should be looking to obviously recoup that salary that we've committed to him and maybe even bring in a little bit of money where we can pay off what we owe and that debt is then removed from the football club and we can reinvest that money next year or in January, hopefully, in additional positions. I've got no personal gripe with Onana. I don't know him. He may be a lovely... In fact, I've heard he's a very nice bloke from people. But I'm talking purely on a footballing level. No personal animosity towards him whatsoever. Good luck in your future. But as a club, I think we need to be ruthless here. And as Promise Ice says here in one of our comments, Terry, it's called greed. And you're right. I think it is greed from him. But hit the like button for us. Make sure you are subscribing to the show and channel as well, please, people. But Onana to leave United, yes, please. Let me just timestamp where we are in the show on this. For me, it's an absolute must. He has to move on. He has to go. There's no doubt about it. By the way, if you haven't done so yet, I want to say thank you to everybody. Let's say please like and please subscribe. But please get that bell notification button turned on that's next to that subscribe button. So many of you have done it over the course of the summer. You put the bell notification button on. But there's also a setting on your... I don't know how to do it on Android, but on iPhone, go into your settings, go into notifications and scroll down to the YouTube app and make sure it's enabled. So I still get messages regularly saying, Terry, I've turned on notifications. YouTube still doesn't tell me when you're live. That'll be because you don't have the settings turned on your phone. So please get that done for us. Even now or at the end of the show, Eva works for us. Now, I want to talk. I really do want to talk about the Alexander Isak situation because it's taken another turn really in the last 24 hours. And I want to go through these stories with you. And what's now being reported is that Alexander Isak could file legal action against the claims that he was deliberately trying to sabotage Newcastle's end of the season. And this was published yesterday here by Chris Williams. It says sources informed by individuals inside Universal 22, that is a player agency, in case anybody isn't aware. They are looking at whether there is a defamation of character case to answer for the publication of highly controversial, unverified remarks in a UK national newspaper about Isak deliberately attempting to sabotage matches. And the claims varied from not working hard, not training hard. We sort of saw those claims and cases yesterday that were put out by Luke Edwards of The Telegraph. And this has led to a point now where Isak and his team are considering legal action. And I don't blame them. This was a claim that was made yesterday by Luke Edwards. And he said that some insiders suggest from April onwards that Isak was behaving like a player who did not want the team to qualify for the Champions League, as if he knew it would make it harder for him to explain to Howe and supporters why he wanted to go. So if he's in the Champions League, essentially they're saying that Isak would have less of a reason to pretend that he had to go. They also state in the same article that insiders said that after he helped them win the Carabao Cup, they started to not train hard, essentially downing tools. And there are suggestions in here. Now, it's implied. The words weren't used, but many people think they're implying that he was essentially trying to help fix matches. His form dropped off, and it was deliberate. It was a deliberate attempt to hurt Newcastle United. He's now out and saying that he is considering taking legal action. And this is the backdrop of multiple other sort of attacks on Alexander Isak as well. And you've seen this, Toon Polls here having a go at Sven Botman, who sent a lovely parting message, who says, what started off as teammates grew into one of my rare best friendships. No more words needed, brother. All the best on your next chapter. Toon Polls and many other Newcastle accounts online saying read the effing room and attacking him. More journalists quoting what Isak has said, where Isak has stated that I am happy, it's done, I can just get back to work. This claim of no one stopped you from going to work. There are fans calling him out online saying that Alexander Isak hasn't referenced Newcastle fans once, not one amongst it all. I get he has no loyalty to Newcastle, but what this fan base gave to him, for him to throw it back in our faces, is an absolute disgrace. And I understand the emotions that Newcastle fans are going through. I've been there myself. When a player you love leaves for either a rival or a bigger club, it hurts. At the same time, where are these same Newcastle fans calling out these claims in the newspapers that he was match fixing, or implying that he was match fixing? Where were these same Newcastle fans when he's been getting dogs abuse, when prominent Newcastle fans are hoping or wishing or preempting their celebration around career-threatening injuries? Where were the Newcastle fans when people were sort of using the tragic loss of Jota and how that's impacted Liverpool players to sort of score points, to say that's what teammates should mean to you? Isak doesn't care about his teammates even in the slightest in comparison. Where were these Newcastle fans there? What about the pejoratives he's been called, the racist abuse that he's got, the mocking him up, making him look like a rat, the belittling of his physique and what he looks like? All these different things have gone on. Silence. Yet, he doesn't care about us. Well, maybe because he's realized you didn't really care about him. Because if you really loved him and respected him and gave him so much, you might be angry that he's going. That doesn't mean you have to abuse him. Soon as whether you're directly abusing him or you're completely ignoring it, why would he come out and say, thank you guys, I love you guys so much? You proved that you didn't like him that much. It works both ways, and it always has done in these scenarios. So I don't get it. And there are still more claims coming out from the mainstream media. Take a listen to this.
Alexander Isak, Wissa went to Newcastle, and Mark Gate's deal fell through at the final minute, who had absolutely done things completely properly, captained the side, played the night before, scored a brilliant goal, was quite emotional with his celebration. So are we saying now that this is the way that players will continue to act in the future?
I think because of what's happened with Isak and what's happened with Wissa, then yeah, you will see more of that. I mean, I don't like it. No, I don't think if any fan likes it. And I can't say that because of the Isak situation. I also have to mention the Wissa situation and him going to Newcastle. I don't like what the players have done when they refuse to play for their clubs and having a contract behind them whilst being paid by the football clubs. No, it's not a good look, and I don't like it. It's not a good look for football. But unfortunately, yes, you are, I think, because of those two getting the moves, particularly the Isak one, because that's been more high profile than anything I can ever remember, then players will look at that and think, well, if he or if they did it, then yeah, I can do it and I might get my move. And yeah, you're going to see more of that in the future, unfortunately.
It should be like, okay, what is your feeling for the summer? Are you signing a new contract? Yes or no? If not, we're going to replace you. If we can get our replacement in, you can go. If not, you're staying put. It's as simple as that. But it seems like the power has now gone to the player all of a sudden. And even I was saying about Isak, the fact that, oh, well, Newcastle probably should just accept 120, 130 million. But why should they have to? They shouldn't. He signed a contract.
They don't have to.
I know, but it got so bad that the fact that you're going to have a player who's unsettled, he's probably never going to want to play for the club again. The fans have basically turned on him. So now they've basically forced the club's hand to say, oh, well, we might as well get 130 million from him rather than maybe 90 million in January. It's just not a good look. I don't like it. It needs to be sorted out on both fronts, both players and club.
It's all a joke. Everything you just heard there is bullshit. Sorry, Micah. Sorry, Alan. Sorry, Gary. You're all chatting shit. Because of these, first of all, they use Wissa and Isak. And then straight away, Alan Shearer's like, oh no, Wissa's situation is different because it isn't as high profile. Bollocks. It isn't Liverpool's fault that they're bigger than Brentford and Newcastle combined times 10. You can't say that Isak's behaviour is worse than Wissa's because it was more high profile. Of course, it's more high profile because the two clubs involved and the player are bigger than Wissa. Doesn't make, at the end of the day, for me, if two people commit a crime, but one of those people is a more high profile individual, doesn't mean they should get a longer or more lenient sentence. They should all be treated the same, right? But let's put that aside. Why are we pretending like players have just started going on strike this year? It set a new precedent. It set a new precedent. Hang on a minute. Off the top of my head, I can go back as far as Pierre Van Hooijdonk going on strike, Carlos Tevez, Dimitar Berbatov, Riyad Mahrez, Diego Costa. Loads of these players have done it before. Raheem Sterling, Dimitri Payet, William Gallas. Top of my head. Players have been striking, refusing to strike. Harry Kane. This isn't a new thing. Why this summer, suddenly, are we overly focused on players that are forcing moves? Alan Shearer has played with people that have done it, no doubt. Either threatened to leave if they don't get the contract they want. In fact, I swear he did it. I swear he held Newcastle to ransom for a new deal. I swear Michael Owen revealed that at some point. Micah Richards most certainly has played with people that have forced moves to get to clubs. I swear he played with Carlos Tevez, but suddenly they're acting and behaving as though this is new, as though this is something that's only just started to happen. And this is the issue with the mainstream media. They forget that social media exists where we can go, okay, we've heard that, but we now have platforms ourselves to research with what they're saying is true, pull up clips from the past where they've said the opposite, and the way they've framed that on one of the biggest podcasts in the world, listened to by millions of people, that these two, Wissa and Isak, this summer have set a precedent. They haven't. This behavior has been going on my entire life in football. And I think it's an absolute abomination. It is an abomination, and it is a targeted hate campaign against Isak specifically, to make him and Liverpool look bad. And do you know why I'm not jumping on the bandwagon? Part of me as a United fan wants to. Oh, let's get them. Let's get them. But we're going to set a really bad precedent that will be used against their own clubs. We are all standing on an exceedingly slippery slope if we do that. And it is an absolute nonsense on every single level. And football fans everywhere should be rejecting this. So I am not surprised. I'm not surprised to see Alexander Isak's camp looking at the potential of taking legal action against the national newspapers, talking about him deliberately sabotaging matches, especially as the article, as far as I read, maybe it's been edited by this point, didn't speak about. They didn't even say that we'd reached out to the players' camp and asked for a comment, and they refused to. Because at least then they're trying to get both sides of the story. If Isak's camp say no comment, there's not much a journalist can do. But there's almost no right of reply here. It's an absolute disgrace on every single level. And I know football banter plays a part in this. Let's attack our rivals. But something about this just feels like it will be more counterproductive for our own teams to side with the ex-pros, the pundits, the media in this weird onslaught against Alexander Isak. And if I think about Raheem Sterling and I think about the abuse this young man got, I know he's not young anymore as a footballer, but you get my point. The abuse this young man got to a point where even a tattoo that symbolized his disdain for guns was like twisted into some weird gang thing. Do you remember when Piers Morgan did that? Why has he got a gun on his leg? Well, because actually it's a message about his father. If I get this slightly wrong, I apologize. His father who was killed at the hands of a gun. It was sort of like a message, a personal thing to him around like, stay away from this, he's bad, etc. It got twisted into something nasty. Why was it twisted into something nasty? Because the media succeeded in warping everybody's minds about the nasty character that Raheem Sterling was. Then you see a tattoo like that and you go, well, no, he's a bad egg. Therefore, that tattoo must mean something bad. The manipulation is crazy. And from my point of view and perspective, I just feel as though, for me, I look at this and just think to myself that as football fans, I think we need to take a stance against this. We really, really do. We have to take a stance against this in every single which way possible, because the abuse this man's getting, I personally think, is nothing short of a disgrace. Hit that like button for us, people. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel, please. Let's go to some of your comments that have come through here. Don, big up, bro. He says, they never talk about these supposed gentlemen's agreements from clubs like I always get it in writing so these clubs don't try to hold you to ransom when previous conversations were had. Yeah, this whole get it in writing thing, again, maybe that's what players are now going to have to do. But at the end of the day, it's a load of old nonsense. If somebody makes you a verbal agreement, or an agreement via an email, they make you a promise. Don, you do shows for me. If you're like, Till, do you mind paying me for the shows? We're meeting face to face. I go, do you know what, mate? Do you know what? From the start of 2026 onwards, I'm going to start paying you for the shows. You'll go, sweet. We shake hands on it. If I don't pay you, I guarantee you, after these mugs in the comment section that will say, well, you should have got it in writing, Don, they go, nah, Terry's a scumbag for doing that. But yet, because it involves Liverpool getting a player, because their hatred of Liverpool is warping their minds. I understand that people say get everything in writing, but that isn't. It just shows me people haven't had real jobs. It shows me people haven't worked in the world of business. It doesn't always work that way. It doesn't. And for me, I look at Wissa and I look at Isak the same. I think they were made promises that weren't kept. And I think they've got every right to push for a move. The same as I believe I believe Man United have got the right to now force Onana out. We have. Because he's got the right to force his way out of the club. At least we've got to be consistent with this stuff. So, yeah, listen, I hope he takes legal action. I hope that he can prove they've lied about him. And I hope that he wins. And I hope that we stop seeing this type of vile journalism. I really, really do. Now, we're going to take calls in a bit. I want you to stay with us. So 3,500 people watching this morning, which is out of this world. But get the like button hit if you haven't done so already. Get yourself subscribing. Stay with us. But I'm going to ask a question now. Okay? And I'm going to ask a question, and it might trigger some people. But I've got to ask the question. Do you think Pep Guardiola is going to get sacked? In fact, let me look at the camera and make sure people understand I'm asking a question. Do you think Pep Guardiola is going to be sacked this season? I want your thoughts. I want your opinions on this in the comment section below. Let's take a look at my bro Culture Cam and the boys on their podcast, because I want to pull on what they've said here. Take a little listen.
As I keep saying, Reinders, good player, great player, whatever you want to call him. Cherky, great player, good player, whatever you want to call him. Nori, same thing. The purpose of them is to make Arsenal Man City a better team offensively. But my big issue is when I watched Man City last season was defensively, and this is why I had them for 4th, and everyone's like 4th place, and I looked at the summer and I said, why haven't they addressed this? And everyone kept telling me, oh well, Rodri, and then when they lost against Spurs, oh, there was no Rodri against you guys or whatever, Rodri. When Rodri comes back, I'm like, is Rodri God?
Did you hear what Rodri said after the game?
What did he say?
He said, I'm not Messi. It's a team
Yeah,
sport.
thank you. No, well, I'm glad he said that, because genuinely, people are treating him like that. And I'm thinking, it's bigger than Rodri, bro. It's big. Their defense today was James Trafford, Nunes, Khabib, Diaz.
He's acting Khabib now.
Bro, that is, if I keep saying, if I put that back 5 and I put that at Wolves, or whoever, would you guys say that's above Wolves or Everton?
Big up the boys. Love the podcast. It's class. It really is. And I listened to it at the weekend, and I saw the clip, and I want to speak about this because we obviously did a massive match reaction Sunday to their game. We have the likes of Staffy, who comes on the show that thinks he's washed at City. LB was yesterday talking about how defensively there's problems. It's not quite working. They're 2 defeats early in the season. They've got Man United next. Man United have performed quite well this season without winning all their games in the league. City's record against top 6, like the big 6, I think it's 6 wins in the last 21 meetings in those games. There is a distinct possibility that Man United and Arsenal in the next 2 games could beat, or at the very least both take points off City. Which, when you look at Liverpool and the direction that they're going in, if Arsenal and Liverpool both win their next 2 games, if City don't win either of their next 2 games, maybe draw one and lose one, points-wise, they're going to be sitting anywhere between 9 to 12 points off of the top of the league 5 games in. And although you never win the league in the first 5-10 games, you can certainly stop yourself from being able to win it. And it was a hot take of mine in the summer. And I said at the time, I said, it's a little bit of a throwaway comment. I said, I don't even fully believe it, but I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. A bit of a Hail Mary, if you like. But I'm starting to believe it a little more. I'm starting to believe there is a possibility that by Christmas, Pep is sacked or walks. Now, I'm not going to try and undo his legacy. One of the greatest coaches of all time. He's one of the greatest in Premier League history. Do I think he's better than Fergie? No. I don't. I believe managing through 4 decades and the change in how you have to behave as a human being from the 70s through to 2013. If you're a kid, you're just not going to understand it. If you don't even remember the 80s a little bit or the 90s, you're not going to understand, especially if you're like born and grew up in this era where like raising your voice is seen as a crime. You got to understand what men of his age have to go through to change to make sure they stayed relevant. It's just not discussed enough. But I still think he's amazing. But I watched his team against Brighton. I watched them against Spurs. I watched them a lot last season. And I couldn't shake this feeling of the system ain't quite working. It doesn't quite have the personnel. And what he doesn't have the ability to do for me, or he hasn't proven that he's got the ability to do it. He hasn't proven to me, Pep, that he has the ability to have holes in a squad and for him to find a solution that can still lead to him winning the major trophies. I don't know if he can do. I don't know if he can do it. I know people say that he did rebuild City to make them into the great team that he was. I feel he added to an already very good squad. And maybe it's how everybody defines rebuilds differently. I look at how, if you look at the squad that Brendan Rodgers inherited to the squad that Klopp inherited to the squad that Slot inherited, I don't look at what Slot's doing as a rebuild. I look at it as it's an extension. Okay, you've got a beautiful 5-bedroom house with 2 ensuite, 5 bedrooms, 2 en suites. But what you're adding now is you're adding an extension. you're digging a pool in the back garden, you're putting on a conservatory, you're redoing the roof as an example, and you're redecorating the inside so it looks nicer. It's not a rebuild, it's an extension. Does that make sense? I believe that Pep took over City and he extended upon something that was already good to very good. What you are now seeing is the need for a rebuild, where the majority of their great players he inherited and that were bought in the early stages have aged out and moved on. There are some great players like Haaland left. The difficulty, and this is what people don't understand about the Sir Alex Ferguson conversation. And when I have these chats, I always wish that Fergie wasn't my manager, because people think I'm being biased. I'm not. It's about, ironically, it's about upholding a standard. Fergie built great teams, and then those great teams aged out, and he rebuilt again. There's one thing adding to a very good team, but when you've created the greatest side that your club has ever had, the challenge is, can you rebuild it afterwards? Do you have the energy to rebuild it again? Knowing it could take 2 to 3 years, I don't know if Pep does. That is why my hot take is that he'll walk away. I don't think they'll sack him mid-season, actually. Let me rephrase what I said earlier. I'm going back on something I've already said. I think Pep will either walk midway through the season or part ways by mutual consent at the end of the season. I don't think they'll actually sack him. I don't think they'll brief that. Even if they do sack him, it will be briefed in a much nicer way. But I think he's also lost a bit of energy. And it is a little bit soldiers. Have you ever played a computer game? You ever started a project? Have you ever done something that you put your heart and soul into and then you lose it? The memory card gets wiped. Somebody destroys it. You might have tried to build a house of cards once upon a time, right? So you can use a really small example or something a bit more emotive and sometimes that can get wiped out. Do you have the stability, the concentration and the emotional levels to go, right, calm down after it's gone? Can I start again from scratch? Can you go back over old ground? Do you have the patience to change elements, but then teach a new group of people exactly how you want them to play, knowing how hard it was to get the previous group to that level and stay consistent? That's the real quiz. Pick up David Brent. That's the real quiz. It doesn't undo how brilliant you were before. I'm just looking at Man City and I'm thinking there could be trouble ahead. There could be trouble ahead here. But I want to get your views. I want to get your opinions on this. Everyone wants Pep out. Of course I want Pep out. But it isn't about that. Because I'm not trying to do his legacy. Actually, if he is washed at City and can't get you back, I don't want him out. If he's finished, I want him to stay. Because if he's finished at your club, emotionally, mentally, the ability-wise, if the recruitment's gone bad and they can't get him the players that he needs, stay. Stay. Because it means you're not going to be a threat. You're not going to win more league titles. And the more and the longer he stays at City not winning, the less likely it is that the media and football fans will crown him the GOAT of the Premier League. Just putting it out there. So for me, I don't want him gone for that reason. I wanted him gone when he was in his pomp. But for me, it's a case of we can't ignore this conversation. For the better part of 12 months, City haven't been good enough. If you actually look at what they've spent in that period on players, okay? Because we would do this to Arsenal, we would do this to Man United, we would do this to Liverpool. If you look at what they've spent in the period that it's all gone off the boil, let's take a look at this because it's going to be significant. It will be significant. I'm going to add this together now because I can. Let me just get this up and then we're going to start taking some calls. Right, so we have 206 plus 243. So that is 449. Sorry, 449. Is that right? Yeah, because you barely bought anybody last summer. That's right. So since it's all been going wrong, £400 million has been spent. 400 million. So this isn't about not spending money. So a lot of money has been spent and it isn't getting any better. There has to be a conversation about this, irrespective of how good Pep has been. I will push back on anybody trying to diminish his achievements because I think that's ridiculous. But it doesn't mean he doesn't have enough credit in the bank to not be criticised, to not have people say what's going on. Now, look, if he beats Man United and he beats Arsenal and they turn it around, I hold my hands up and say, we all got a bit giddy. We all got a little ahead of ourselves. But there's something about this that ain't quite right. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinions in the comment section below, please, people. Now, let's jump into some of your super chats that have come through here before I bring out Cal and KJ and the guys. This here says, when United didn't win the Premier League for 3 years between 04 and 06, and Fergie had to rebuild, a lot of people said Fergie had lost it and should retire in 02. Absolutely fair point. Absolutely fair point. What I would say is a little bit different is Fergie hadn't lost his hunger. Fergie didn't look like he was losing his mind. And you also had a situation where in that 3-year period, something changed in football, which is highly significant. Roman Abramovich entered. And love or loathe what he did, he started spending money like nobody had ever seen before. Ever. I think in his first two, if I say this and get this slightly wrong, this isn't a dig, by the way, because I was never against it. What Chelsea spent from, say, 03 to, say, 2006 in those first few years, and I'm talking, you've got to include inflation because football money's gone up in the game. In those first few years of Roman, the money that was spent in those first 3 years, they almost caught up what most other clubs had spent in the entire Premier League before it, the last 10 years. They spent more in 2 or 3 years than most clubs have done in 10. So I'll give you an example. In that first summer, it was 173 million. The second year, 162 million. The next year, it was 91 million. Let me put that into context for you. That doesn't sound a lot because of today's money has gone up. But let me put that into context for you. The previous season, Chelsea spent nothing. The year before that, when they signed Lampard, they spent 49 million. The year before that, they spent 52 million. The year before that, they spent 26 million. The year before that, 19 million. The year before that, 14 million. The year before that, 18 million. The year before that, 6 million. The year before that, 6 million. The year before that, 4 million. The year before that, 2 million. Are you understanding what I'm saying here? Even in the years where money was increasing, they were a team spending between 20 and 40 million pounds, 20 and 50 million pounds. That's between 20 and 40 million a year max in the first 10 years of the Premier League. Suddenly, it went from 20 to 40 million to 170. And to give you an idea, Liverpool were a big spender in that period. Liverpool were a big spender in that period. Newcastle had been a big spender in that period. And of course, Man United had been. So let's put this into context and then we'll come back to the super chat. Because it's really important, I think, to understand this about the game. It's really, really important to know sort of what was going on at that time. So we scroll back to that era, because I lived this, right? So let's go back to that era again. Liverpool, that were one of the biggest spenders at that time as well. But to put it into context, in those, up until Roman came in, Liverpool's expenditure was, this is in euros. So we're doing pounds here, 25 million. This is working from Roman backwards. 25 million, 23 million, 25 million, 41 million, 6 million, 10 million, 4 million, 12 million, 8 million. Right back to the beginning of the Premier League. Manchester United. Okay, this again, we'll go from when Roman came in backwards to give you an idea of how the levels of spending went up. Manchester United, okay, was 40 million, 62 million, 8 million, 8 million. I mean, the year we won the treble, we spent 38 million pounds, right? 5 million, 11 million. This is the funniest one. 95-96, Manchester United spent already double Premier League champions. We spent £300,000. 94-95, we spent 8 million. The first Premier League season, so the second, after winning the first Premier League title, we spent £3 million. We bought Roy Keane. And the first Premier League season ever, we spent 2.5 million. I'm putting it into context that the money being spent in the early 90s, it was sort of ranged between like 1 to 5, 6 million each year. As the money started to increase in the late 90s, it was still only ranging for Man United between sort of tens and 40 million pounds. up until the summer, the biggest ever spending summer was, I think, when we bought Veron, and we went up to 85 million was spent that year. But contextually, right, that was one of our biggest selling summers ever. We actually sold 45 million pounds worth of players, which is why we spent more, right? Because Andy Cole went that season, and Yap Stam left, and we got a lot of money for these players. But the point I'm making is, back to this super chat, I think it's so important for the context. Chelsea, in their first summer under Roman Abramovich, spent more money than Liverpool and Arsenal combined in the previous 10 years. So when people say Fergie didn't win the league for 3 years, you have to factor in that a team came in and spent 173 million, followed by 162 million, followed by 90 million 3 years running. And ironically, the first year they spent 173 million, they didn't actually win the league. That was the Invincible season. So there was the Invincibles and a team that had spent more money than we'd ever seen before in the history of football. Ever. Just when I say unprecedented, if you weren't, that was 22 years ago. So anyone for me that's say 30, 31, 32 years old and younger, you don't remember it. You don't. You've kind of got to be a little younger than me or older to actually remember how abnormal it was. It was crazy. I remember sitting there and saying to my dad, what's going on? Because before, you'd get a bit of stick if you spent 20 or 30 million in it. Fucking, they spent a lot, 20, 30 million. And that was considered a lot of money. And suddenly a team went from spending 20, 30 million, you being called a checkbook club for 20, 30 million. And suddenly, the team spent 170. We were going, what the fuck? That's the equivalent now. Liverpool spending, I'll show you what that's like, okay? This would be the unprecedented nature of it. Liverpool right now have probably spent a little bit above what the average is. The average amount of money being spent in the summer now by Premier League clubs is around 200 million. Okay, to put this into context for you, okay? Just want to do this for a moment now. Let's just divide it by 40 million to be on the upper side, 4.3, okay? It's the equivalent of a team going out and spending 860 million pounds in a summer. Now, you go, what the fuck? You go, hang on. That's the equivalent. The average at the moment of the big teams in England is 200 million a year. What Chelsea did then, and I weren't against it, I'm just pointing out, when you say Fergie didn't win for 3 years and he wasn't being called out like Pep, it's because something changed in those 3 years that we'd never seen in football before. We'd seen the money of Liverpool in the 70s and 80s. We'd seen Blackburn and Newcastle come in with more money, but they were still only spending marginally more than what the other teams were spending. Where United and Liverpool were averaging 20, 30 million spend in the mid to late 90s, those guys were maybe doing 35 to 40 as an average. But what Chelsea did was they times it by 4, 5, 6, and everyone's going, Jesus. So it's a very different scenario, but I'm glad we got the chance to go through that because I know the young un didn't live it. Give Pep time, stop gaslighting, he'll be good. We can at least have we're not gaslighting, we're having conversations. It's not gaslighting because I presented the other side of the argument as well. That we could be wrong, that it could turn things round, and I would change my mind and apologize if I was wrong. Gaslighters don't do that. Thank you. Terry, I know it's off topic. The reason Mikel Arteta is done is 5 games before the Liverpool game at Anfield last season. You are all winnable games. Maybe you Google it. Yeah, very off topic for what we're discussing today. Yeah, I mean, if you think he's done, you think he's done. I mean, I think that should be his last season if he doesn't win a major trophy. Is there a possibility that maybe Pep's tactics have been figured out by other teams and maybe he hasn't refreshed his tactics as well as the teams? There's always that distinct possibility. So, for instance, the way Barcelona played football in that peak era of Pep doesn't work anymore. And you saw that because Bayern Munich and Real Madrid addressed it brilliantly in that era. What they did is they found players that were similar in technical ability, but that were all 3 or 4 inches taller on average and 5 to 10 kilos heavier on average. And that Barcelona team, if you go back and watch, as brilliant as it was, a lot more games, people were able to withstand what they did. They were conceding more goals. It wasn't that the tactics became old, is there was a remedy for it. And football evolves in that way. And if you don't evolve with it, you can be left behind. Gyökeres has done the same as Isak this year, and no one is even speaking on it. Serious journalism needs to be unbiased and not ultra extreme bias. I completely agree. Gyökeres was a name I even forgot about, who also went on strike this summer as well. And I think from my point of view and perspective, the way that Gary Lineker and co there have tried to make it sound that Isak has now just changed the way football is forever by his behavior, I think it's disgusting to put that all on one person in that way. Vile. What's Shearer's opinion on Gahey's case now? Do you know what's really funny? Like, Gahey should have forced the move. Some will say, no, he's shown honour. He's shown honour. What if he never gets that Liverpool move now? I wonder how he'll feel. Terry, I hope we get the Arsenal DNA play back. So is that from, yes, DNA play back. Our defense is the best in the league. When attacks click, we will be cooking something special. I think you're going to have more better games than not. I think everyone's reading too much into going away at Anfield. You could have taken more risks. But look how well you attacked against Leeds. I think people are panicking. I think people are panicking personally, but that's just my humble opinion. Liverpool fan, but Terry is speaking facts on Chelsea. By the way, and it's not even bitterness. Some Chelsea fans will take it as bitterness because they're insecure. It isn't about being bitter towards Chelsea. It's just the reason that Fergie didn't win for 3 years was impacted massively by what Chelsea started spending and how good the Invincibles were. It was those two things. If Pep, by the way, was still playing very good football, if Pep's teams are still looking really competitive and really good, but there were just two teams that were better, the conversation's different. That isn't what's going on here. But that's just me. Did you see the Pratt Man song? Yeah. If you guys haven't seen, just search Pratt Man on X. I can't play it because the song playing in the background is copyrightable. It's the original Batman song, but it's Goldbridge talking about Onana. It's absolute content gold. All this talk about spending, where was all the talk about people when we didn't sign anyone after we won the 1920 season? Done it in the right way. I've got no issue with Liverpool spending. I've criticised Liverpool for not spending in the past, but you're just always going to get this. You're always going to get it because people will always look for a reason to hate on a team. Anthony Gordon did the same to go to Newcastle. Yes, another player that sort of went on strike and forced the move for whatever reason. And maybe it's because it's because the agency that Isak's with doesn't play ball with the TV companies and the broadcasters and the podcasters, and they're all just kind of trying to attack him. But I just don't think it's going to wash with real football fans. I think we've all seen it. I have to say, Terry is the most unbiased Man United fan who can talk objectively about other clubs. I appreciate you saying that. It's what I aim to be. It's hard sometimes because you want your bias to come through, if that makes sense, and you just want to shit on a rival and praise your own team. But I honestly think that kind of content's just dead now. I was just listening to a friend of mine's podcast the other day, and I get some people will enjoy it, and fair play to you. But it was just 6 people back in their clubs, which is fine, but just speaking shit about each other's, and it just weren't true. And I was just like, oh God, are we still there? Maybe it's because I'm nearly 40. Maybe it's because I've matured out. But it reminded me of being back at primary school, where you would say to people, Andy Cole's so much better than Ian Wright, shit. Yeah, that's what you said when you were 10. Even when I was 13, 14, I'd go, Henry's nothing compared to Van Nistelrooy. Different players. Van Nistelrooy is amazing, but Henry, I think, was better than him. When you're at school and you're a kid, that's how you do it. But when I see 35, 40, 50-year-old men talk like that, I just think, fuck off. Come on, we're beyond that now. We're beyond it. We're beyond it, in my opinion. Will England have a manager like Bob Paisley again? I don't know. I don't know if we will, if I'm being absolutely honest with you. I think that we are in terms of English managers, there are not very many good ones anymore. There's not many great ones around. I don't really know what else to say on it than that, but yeah, very unlikely at the moment to have anyone of that level. Right, time to bring the panel out now. We're going to take some calls. Blown away by the numbers this morning, by the way. So if you guys could hit that like button for us, that'd be amazing. Get yourselves subscribing as well. Really important to the platform that you're subscribing and that you turn on the bell notification button. I know many thousands of you have done it, but if you haven't, please get that done. Who we got coming on the show this morning? I haven't even looked back. So we've got Cal and KJ, we've got Ash, we've got K-Mac, all coming on the show here with us now. Let me just move this over. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to go to Ash first, as to talk about the lead story today, which is Alexander Isak's team considering legal action, not against Newcastle United, but against certain publications that have suggested that he was trying to sabotage the end of your season. That coupled with all these claims, Gary Lineker and co, that like Isak's changed football this year and set a new precedent of going on strike. Do you think this is getting a little out of control now, the way that Isak is being targeted by the mainstream media and by the legacy broadcasters?
100%. I think at this point, I support him if he does, because it's getting to a point now where he's going to be going to football matches and it's going to start leading to stuff like racism. And that is not allowed. That should never be allowed in football, and it shouldn't. It'll end up happening. It's not as black and white. He's also has a bit of fault from his side of things of how he's gone about it by being on strike for 40 days, which is also not good. However, there has also been a very big portrayal of how he's behaved by the media that have also created a fan base that have made him think certain ways towards him. So obviously in normal society, celebrities and stuff like that have gone people with lawsuits for destroying their character and how they are, which you can do that with civil lawsuits. And I personally, if he did that to certain people that I think a lot of people know the names of, I wouldn't be against it. I think journalism is starting to edge towards opinion rather than factual journalism, which is where it needs to be and where it needs to stay. Granted, if it does happen, it'll be interesting because obviously it will mean that stuff will come out in the court of actually communications, what's happened, say, between the club and media. So we'd actually be able to find out what's actually been portrayed that's been the truth rather than based off their opinion. But look, if he did go down the legal route, I wouldn't be against it, to be honest. But I think it's going to be very hard for him to nail on exactly how to do that. But I mean, he's not exactly short of money, is he? So
now these players and footballers need to start doing this more to publications, because the absolute drivel that these guys put out against footballers is a disgrace. I've seen as a Man United fan the way that they treated Pogba, the way that they treated Marcus Rashford, the way they treated Martial, Lingard. Obviously, there's a clear theme, by the way, of who they talk about. There's a clear theme. When you've got Jack Grealish being drunk and disorderly and crashing cars, minimal coverage. But when you got Rashford going out just for a night out, being at the boxing with some jewelry on, you got flipping 1,000, 2,000 word essays.
Bro, Joe Linton did that as well. He did drunk driving before. Yeah. And I bet you guys, you probably didn't even know about that, did you? Because it wouldn't have been like it wouldn't have been spread about as much there either. But it's what it is.
But the players need to start doing this to these publications, because it is a disgrace. And you're right, Ash. People will say you're going too far with your analysis, or it could lead to racism. What do you mean? No, it does. This is how it starts. This is how it builds. This is how agenda builds. This is how people start getting vilified. And then people think it's okay to say what they want. When really and truly, what happened was a business. It was a business transaction. What happened? Alexander Isak wanted one thing. Newcastle wanted another. They went about it, both went about it how they wanted to go about it. And the end result is Isak gets what he wants. Newcastle get money. That's all it is. And my thing, I've been thinking about it recently, and I'm like, wait a sec. Because I live in Birmingham, right? And Birmingham, we have a big issue with the council, and the bin men are on strike. So we don't have our recycling collected. We have our bins still collected, but again, it can be late. It's not on time sometimes. So we're going through that. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, wait, am I angry at the bin men for going on strike and saying, no, you've got a contract, no, you have to work, all these things? Or am I angry at the council for not providing them with the things that they need to go and work? The more I think about it, the more I'm like, actually, why am I upset at the player for striking when in this country, workers have a right to strike when things are not being fulfilled? we're built on that. So why am I getting vexed? We need to look at that because I listened. Sorry, Terry, I'm going to finish with this.
Yeah.
We listened to that clip of the Gary Lineker, Shearer, and Michael Richards. Oh yeah, he's got a contract, and we want to talk to you at the end. And if you don't sign, then you can only go for a replacement. Now forget all of that. The clubs need to get better at doing this. If a player says he wants to leave, and then you speak to him, you try and say, listen, we want you to stay. How about we do this? How about we do that? If you guys provide solutions and he's still not taking it, you need to sell. Just sell him. Oh, sorry. Just sell him. Because it makes your life easier. It makes the players' life easier. And we keep going. Why do you think you've never heard anything like this at Man City? Because as soon as a player says I wants to leave, they talk to the player. They try and convince them, yes. It happened with Kyle Walker. He wanted to leave to Bayern Munich. He convinced him to stay. But if they say no, just let them go. So I'm looking at Newcastle and the press more than I do Isak, because he actually has, as much as people don't like it, he actually has the right to strike.
I mean, strike action is something that's built in this country, and it's something I wouldn't push against. There's a comment here that says, Terry, how much power do you want these prima ballerina footballers to get? Power over a manager, club, now the media. No, but it isn't about power. It's about fairness. So this is what you're not. By the way, this is what I'm saying. It's not about power over their clubs. If a club has got the power to say to a player, yes, you got 4 years left on your contract, but we want you gone. You're going to sit in the reserves unless you take this move. Then the players should have the power to say, I'm not going to kick a ball unless I get a move. It's about balance in the situation. You are right. If the manager turns around and says to the owners, if Eddie Howe turns around to the owners and says, I don't want Isak in my team because he's been downing tools in training, I expect the owners to back the manager over the player because you need that power dynamic to be in place. There is a dichotomy and there is a contrast and a clear difference between those two things. And power over the media, no. Alexander Isak shouldn't be able to lie about the media. The media shouldn't be able to lie about him. When the media write articles that are detrimental, where are the passages in these articles that say we reached out to Isak for comment and he refused to? Where is David Ornstein got shit all summer from certain Newcastle fans? But in all of his articles, it would say Alexander Isak said these promises were made, or he communicated a year ago that he wanted to go. The next sentence was Newcastle have claimed this is not true. Balance. No one here is saying players should have the power over everybody. What we're saying is balance. I don't understand what people are not getting about balance in the reporting. That is all that is being requested here. Super Chat says, I think clubs need to take action against media. United doing better than City, Newcastle and Aston Villa, but the agenda and toxicity only on United is disturbing. We heard that some people said it was a joke yesterday, but when you've got Scholesy, who I love, and you've got Jamie Carragher they say they were joking, but that's just what they're going to hide behind. I've been in this game too long. Oh, Amorim wouldn't have a job if he wasn't so good looking. Why are you even putting that out there? Like because Jamie Carragher says it, and everyone goes, he's joking. But then the camera pans to Scholesy, and Scholesy like, yeah, like that. That isn't what someone does who doesn't believe that to a certain extent. It's like, no, he means it. Terrible punditry. At the end of the day, certain things sell and certain things don't. The reason why they're going to go in more on Isak than they are Wissa is because of all the people that hate Liverpool will jump on all these stories about how Wissa's horrible because they go, oh, I can stick it to Liverpool. But we're targeting a human being for something that isn't really that bad. We get less. I wouldn't mind if the media did this to footballers that get caught drink driving, because that kills people. But have you noticed something that's really weird about society? A footballer getting caught drink driving is ignored. But if he cheats on a woman or he forces to move out of a football club, we want him to go to fucking Nuremberg. And I sit there and I think, what is wrong with society where having some extramarital curricular activities or forcing a move out of a football club is suddenly seen as a worse crime than drink driving that literally kills and ruins thousands of lives a year? I sit there and I just go, there's something warped about this for me. There's something really, really warped. If Isak got caught drink driving 5 times over the limit, no one would care. Says, I want to go on strike, evil man. God, if he got caught on a date with another woman, people would want him hung up. Drink driving, fine. Very weird level of priorities in the world of football at the minute. K-Mac is your player now. What do you make of the attacks on your man?
I think, look, there's an element that like the Newcastle fans have got every right to be peed off. Okay, that's fair. Like, we're taking their best player, and I feel like with that they haven't really got anybody to scream at. Like, they can't get to the owners. Like, nobody can seem to have any conversations with the owners, even Eddie Howe by the looks of it. So there's not really anyone to point your anger at. But I do feel like it was an orchestrated, funded smear campaign on Alexander Isak from day one. That's what it feels like to me. Like, it was orchestrated because it went from every single major media channel, and it was every single day. Like, and I'm not talking like it just in the morning. On TalkSport, it was morning, afternoon, evening, repeated over and over. Sky, repeated over and over. And you're like, there has to be a reason for that. That has to be getting funded. There must be someone at the top that's pushing that down, because it's just really odd that was talked about consistently, and all the other ones like Gokares and Visser and God knows how many other people would probably force some moves right across the whole of Europe, by the way. Nothing, just silence. But that one, we've got to talk about that constantly. And I just thought it was really weird, because if he does sue for defamation, a character, which I think he should, by the way, like 100%, like, because he has been literally hung out to dry by everybody with no proof whatsoever, because you still don't know whether he did have a gentleman's agreement, he didn't have a gentleman's agreement, whether he's got any text messages or emails or anything like that, whether his agent's got any information that can back that up. You don't know yet. But that might come out in the wash if he does go for defamation. Like, he's allowed to leave the club in the transfer window. He's allowed to want ambition. He's allowed to want to move to a bigger club. Everybody does it. Like, and all of the football players, the majority of the sensible ones who have been in the business, have all turned around and said, yeah, I would have done the same. I would have done the same. Danny Murphy, Jolene Lescott, all of them, I would have done the same. Like, I wanted to move to a bigger club. I would have kicked up a stink.
Mm. No, I hear. What are you saying, Cal? What's on your mind with this, bro?
Well, yeah, I agree that I think the media, like, defaming Isak is wrong, and they're taking it too far, because I feel like we're getting to the point where they're kind of acting like fans. They're not actually acting like journalists, which is like, what's the point of them if they're not going to act professionally and actually provide something and provide some sort of insight? No one seems to have any sort of insight. So they have really nothing to add to the conversation that we can't just talk about in our rooms ourselves. So I think that's why it was probably, they're actually running out of things to say. But I think the notion as to why this was such a big deal, I think it's pretty obvious why it was a big deal. It's because Isak was being talked about as the best striker in the world after winning Newcastle their first trophy in like 50 years, and he's going on strike to Liverpool. I think that was always going to be the big story because of the profile involved. Like, at the end of the day, and it's also like English clubs, at the end of the day, no one's really, like, Gyökeres did the same thing, and that did get some coverage, but it's not going to get nearly as much coverage as like a deal between Newcastle and Liverpool. And the amount of money involved, the fact that Liverpool were just playing hardball as well. There's a lot of things, like, even from without media coverage, I think it was pretty interesting situation. The fact that Liverpool like put in 110 million, 40 million below, and then just left for weeks, and Isak just continued to go on strike. I think that was interesting to like just talk about and see. But in terms of the whole player power thing, I do think there needs to be a balance, because yes, players should be allowed to, well, a player can go on strike and they can just say, I'm not going to play. But at the end of the day, when I think about the players at my club and we want to sign, we have players on certain lengths of contracts. I wouldn't want a player in my club to just sit there with 3 or 4 years left and just not do anything about it. To be honest, I would have been very interested to see if Newcastle would actually just call Isak's bluff, and see if they were just going to sit him down, because that's the only thing you can do in that situation. So I don't think it's these poor owners and these poor clubs. Call the bluff, take the risk. I mean, technically they do have the power to just sit them there and say, okay, if you don't want to play for 3 years, we won't play you for 3 years. But they're not going to do that. So, if they're not willing to take the risk, then they can't really complain about a player, not playing for them either.
Cal, I agree with that, but that's where the issue is as a club with an asset, say that's worth around £150 million, you can't just say, oh, do you know what? We're going to call your bluff and leave you on the benches to rot. Because, say, another club that's got a lot of revenue, we're not at that level at the moment. So we need to either have him playing and firing at all cylinders, or we need to sell him to be able to buy replacements. Otherwise, we're going to be in a position where we're going to be down tools in just to kind of prove a point and to show everyone we are not going to stand for this, which I think I wouldn't be annoyed if that was the case. Granted, Isak would eventually come back in after a few weeks because obviously he'll realise he'll have to play. But
would he though?
Would he? I say, would he? What's the guarantee that would happen?
But I think if they thought that, they would have kept him.
Right? I think.
Can I also mention one thing as well? Where did this strike thing come from? Because
what do you mean?
On strike. He was told to stay away from training.
No, he wasn't. He was told to.
No, he was. They tried desperately to get this brother back in the team.
Bro, K-Mac, don't do that. Listen, what happened? No, because what you're doing, right? Isak was on strike for 40 days. What you're doing is you're taking the last end of his strike as that and forgetting what actually happened. We took him on the Asia tour with us. He pulled out with a quote-unquote knee injury, went back to Newcastle, and then immediately went over to Real Sociedad to train by himself. Newcastle was not aware of this. Eddie Howe has said publicly that he found out through the Spanish media that he was literally in a different country. We didn't even know about this. We didn't even have anything tried and tested about his quote-unquote knee injury. And then since he's come back from then, they did a medical on him and stuff, found nothing was the matter with him. And then he was then told to train away from the squad because he refused when we came back to Brenton to play. He refused to play with the team for the first few days because he came at the end of the training era. But so Eddie Howe has then said
he came back to Newcastle before the Newcastle team came back to Newcastle.
A couple of days before, because he was told to come back from Real Sociedad
to get scans. He met the medical staff there.
Yeah, no, I came back. You can't twist his hand.
Isak was not a victim in this situation.
Come on,
you can't do
that. I just found it really weird that he wasn't fined. Like, if you're going on strike, then you get fined. That's normally you're the bad person, aren't you? But they never fined him.
You don't get fined for preseason. You get fined for missing actual games, which he did. He got fined for missing the Premier League games that he's missed.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but yeah, this whole situation, it just, for me, it just stinks. And I'm more annoyed at the media. I'm more annoyed at when I say I'm annoyed at Newcastle, it's who's allowed this to go through. Who's allowed this news to come through? Because we can't act like our clubs don't see these things. The reporters go to clubs and their representatives and say, we're reporting on this. What do you want to say? Or we're reporting on this. Let's do a deal so I don't report it. Like that, we all know that happens. It's the same with Man United. When we was allowing Sancho's stuff to get leaked, we didn't like that. Me and Terry called that out. When Rashford's character's been assassinated over the years, the clubs is allowing that to happen. We don't like that. So what's happening with Newcastle? Who's allowing this news to come out? And the media, they're snake. We know they're snakes and pagans. We know what they are. They will sell their own nan to get a click on the flipping on an article. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. There's just some super chats here that have come through. Terry, you were not this loud over Trent with Liverpool fans. Stop gaslighting the media. I stand by this 100%. Well, I'm not gaslighting anybody because I'm
it's totally different as well.
Well, I think there are similarities, but gaslighting.
Trent handled his situation way cleaner than this. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, I think he probably did. But what I would say is this: it isn't gaslighting when one, I'm allowing anybody with any type of opinion to come on and challenge and say what they want. Two, I'm presenting both sides of the argument and asking for balance. It's the complete opposite to what someone who gaslights somebody does. There's no balance to it. So it's completely the wrong word. But equally with Trent, what have I said the whole time? I said I get why he wants to go, and I stand with him on that. What I haven't told Newcastle fans is what I haven't told Liverpool fans. I haven't told Newcastle fans how they should feel. What I have said is I don't think they've been given the right information or had it framed in the correct way. I think it's been framed in a way that's made them angrier. The same as with Liverpool. What's the one thing I've been asking for? Where are I need to see the reports from either side. Was Trent offered deals and said, no, I won't be signing no matter what happens. I'm going to leave for free if you don't sell me because I'm not going to sign a new deal? Or did he string them along saying, I will sign until it was too late? Because that information, I think, changes everybody's mind. I think every Liverpool fan that respects their club, it turns out Trent was saying for 2 years, guys, I'm just not renewing no matter what. I think they'll be less angry at him. The same as if it turns out Newcastle made promises to Isak, Newcastle fans will probably dislike him less because, oh God, he was lied to. And that's exactly the same scenario to me in terms of what I'm looking for.
I just have one thing to say as well. I don't think this should be like a fan thing, unless the fans are literally being like racist or something like that. But in terms of fan anger in both the Trent situation and the Isak situation, 100% justified in being angry and being as angry as they want to be. Because if I was a Liverpool fan for the Trent situation, I'd be completely enraged, same as if I was a Newcastle fan with this Isak situation. So I think it's like a big media problem with the lies and such.
I think the thing that got Liverpool fans the most is it's all the interviews that he did, and it's like, I want to be the captain. Like, it means more. All of this stuff, and then secretly, whether it was secretly or not, I don't know. Like, honestly, we probably will never know until his memoirs come out, or he comes back to the UK and someone leaks that stuff. I don't know, but it's the fact that it did feel like he was stringing us along. Like, and even all of this, like, I'm like, just say you're leaving. Like, say you're leaving, and the fans will leave you alone.
Way. Liverpool fans, you're in a sticky spot now because your guys a lot of your fans are celebrating Isak coming in and how he did it and the fact that he wanted you guys.
I don't like the way he did it, by the way, KJ. I don't like the way he did it, mate.
But... No, but are you celebrating? You're celebrating man for the door, isn't it? You celebrating man for the door.
I saw a sign yesterday outside at Newcastle's training ground or stadium that said like Isak is a rat. Wissa is a Geordie, and I'm sitting there like this. The irony in that banner, I just died with.
Bro, that was definitely a Sunderland fan. That was definitely a Sunderland fan.
Yeah, maybe.
You guys are all hypocrites.
This here says that the EPL should be like the NFL, not like the NBA. Contracts have to mean something. Don't sign a 6-year deal if you want to move in 2. Look, I'm all for it. But again, it's got to work in both directions. I don't think clubs would be happy that they only sign people to 2-year deals because that's what players will do. Let's just say a 6-year deal means you cannot say we rewrite the law of the game. And if you sign a 6-year deal, you can only move for free at the end of the deal. Players are all going to start saying, I want 1 year, 2-year deals all the time. Clubs won't go for it. So
the thing is, the NBA players get traded like baseball cards. Like, players have absolutely no say as to where they go in the NBA. Yeah. That's a horrible idea. Like, players, you literally wake up one morning and you have to fly across the country and play for a different team.
Bruv. You'll wake up and ESPN say you've been traded. You're like, oh, bruv,
that's horrible.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, like, the whole, you signed a 6-year contract. You have to say, why? Because when a player signs a 6-year contract and they're crap, no fan is sitting there saying, well, he's got a 6-year contract. The club can't sell him now. That's so rude. No, they say get him gone. So what's the difference here? It doesn't matter. The contract.
There's nothing.
To pay the money to get him out the contract. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I agree. It says when clubs freeze out players, contracts don't matter. Exactly. And it's about balance. And as I've got older, like, maturing is realizing that loyalty works in both directions. Because do you know what football fans remind me of in these scenarios? And I had a friend that did this once. I've told this story before. My friend cheated on his girlfriend and then wife. When I say on a regular basis, it was like a hobby. It was like going to the gym for him, right? It's what he did. Now, we're his boys, so we always protect him, but we always just tell him, you're a fucking scumbag, right? Anyway, I remember him turning up, and the lip was doing the lip thing. I thought, what's wrong? She cheated on me, man. And he was gutted, and he was angry that she cheated on him. And we were all sitting there, and we're like, once he calmed down, we're like, bruv, what do you expect? You know what I'm saying, right? I was like, you've had more one-ups than Mario. Do you know what I'm saying, bro? Like, what are you angry about here? This is what football fans are like. They are happy to miss. They don't care how badly players at their club are treated, other clubs are treated, agents are treated, the media is treated. If their club benefits, if they're getting something they want, as soon as it goes the other way, outrage. And I just can't be like that. I think clubs need to take action.
Fans. That's what we are.
It's true. True Geordie did another shocking show, left a comment reminding him to be very careful of what he says, as it could lead to legal action. Hashtag. He didn't mention Jota again, did he?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a hashtag as well. I don't know if he did. I'm not too sure what.
There's no way.
I really hope he didn't.
No,
I don't know. I don't know what I said.
Joseph says Terry is a snitch. No, I didn't snitch on my friend, and him and his missus knows he cheated. That's why they're not together anymore. I wouldn't out my friend like that. I was just telling you a story of something from old. Didn't say his name either. No one knows who I'm talking about. I'll change his name as well, so you don't understand what his name is. You know what a name? His name was his name was Bot. No, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, don't try it.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
If I change it, his name's Makeup. No one knows his name's Makeup. That covers his name. There we go. Some Newcastle fans saying shit about Liverpool when Wissa was doing the same thing to force a move to Newcastle. True Geordie is very bitter about all of this. But look, I've got a lot of respect for what True Geordie has achieved in the industry, okay? I don't respect everything he's said and done, and he's apologized for those things himself. I will say that I do remember him slagging off oil money in football for years and then celebrating when Newcastle were taken over. And I remember it. And that's always, that's what all I'd say. Like, True Geordie is just being emotional because he's upset that he's lost something he wants. But because he's gaining something he wants, with the same behavior, he's not going to be upset. But we know that's True Geordie. That's whether you love him or loathe him. I'm not slagging it. That's what he's like. We've seen it in that moment.
And then fans will do this thing of, but yeah, I don't like how Wissa's done it, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't care how Wissa's done it.
I was having a debate with a good friend of mine last night. We're in a group chat with my mates, right? And I'm gonna say his name. Big up Tony. And he likes to think of himself as a real lefty, right? And I just said, but you can't be a complete lefty. I said, because you're a capitalist. He's like, I'm not a capitalist, but you are a capitalist. He goes, I vote for Corbyn and I'd vote for his new party. And I'm like, yeah, but you're still a capitalist. He goes, how am I a capitalist? I said, you're a managing director of one of the leading private equity firms in the world. You're a capitalist. He goes, but I'm not. I don't agree with everything we do. I went, he's paid a lot of money. I went, but you take their money. Mm-hmm. You are one. You can't. I said to him,
you're capitalizing.
Yeah, so you're literally capitalizing. So what you do is take over businesses. You make promises to them. You lie to them. You gut the business. You fuck the staff off, and you make loads of money. So you can't be more capitalistic than a private equity firm. I said you're the equivalent of someone pretending they're a vegan whilst butchering animals. It don't make sense. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't.
Sheep clothing. Forgot he was in sheep's clothing for real, bro.
Yeah.
It's like Ted Bundy saying he's a feminist. It doesn't make sense. But you get that a lot. Football fans are the worst for it. Football fans are the worst for it.
You know the phrase, two things can coexist. Sometimes two things cannot coexist. They can't.
No. It's like all the celebrities. All I care about is climate change. It's the biggest issue in the world. What are you doing this weekend? I'm flying 500 miles on my private jet and then going out on my petrol guzzling yacht for 4 days. Yeah, okay, great. Crack on.
Yeah, Terry, talk about
clubbing a seal for some fun. What are they doing? It's what they're like. That bit was a joke, people. That bit was a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah, talking about forcing out though, Terry.
Like Sean Locke there.
We need to force out this brother Onana, fam.
Onana
to go. Shit, hey, it's time to learn Arabic, my friend. Get on that plane and flip and go. You see, this is why I'm not vexed at Isak, because I'm sitting here saying, yo, Man United, tell that guy he's fourth choice. And that he's not even going to be playing with the reserves. But than that, you're just going to be in training. You are now the training goalkeeper. You ain't going to see pitch. You ain't going to even see bench. You're there. You're not even going to see OT, bruv. You'll be there watching at Carrington, watching games from Carrington because you are the training goalkeeper. This guy needs to go. And Man United are right to try and let him go. You know why? Because he has screwed us more times than one. Yeah, more times than one. Because I'm starting to believe, again, allegedly, I'm not saying he is. This is just a personal opinion. So therefore, it's not defamation. He is an agent of chaos. He's been sent by the enemy. And when I say the enemy, I don't mean Man United. I don't mean Man City. I don't mean Liverpool. I don't mean Chelsea. I mean the spiritual enemy that we face in real life. He's been sent by him to cause chaos and misery at Manchester United. That is what I believe. Yeah. So he needs to get gone. Okay. He needs to get gone. So Man United did the right thing. Onana, as much as I like him as a person, I actually genuinely think as a guy, he's probably one guy you want around. He's probably flipping hilarious. Probably really nice. I get all of that. Yeah. But as a footballer, he needs to leave.
I like this comment from Lime. He says, a capitalist is someone who owns and profits off others' work. Working for a capitalist company doesn't make you a capitalist. I agree with that at the lower end of the spectrum. So a cashier in a bank earning £16,000 a year, I would say so. They both people in that circumstance, that they need a job, right? And it's a job. I'm talking about someone who, though, is a managing director who is paid north of $500,000 to $1 million a year plus bonuses off of the profits the company makes. So off your own, that you are, for me, you're at least not against it anyway, right? And that's my view on a lot of these things, right? I'm just not a fan of people that sort of, I'm totally against this. I'm totally against the murder of animals, man. It's crazy. What do you do for a living? I sweep up the floor at a butcher's. You could get that. You might not, but yeah, maybe it's the only job you can find. You got to feed your kids. Fair enough. But I think there's a possibility you could find something else. Maybe.
You can sweep the floor of somewhere else that doesn't kill animals.
Yeah, you could sweep the floor at hairdressers. You could sweep the floor at a sweet shop. Like we have to be very honest. But like always with people, the world is full of and we all do this to a certain degree. Like everyone likes the virtue signal. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I gave some money to charity not long ago, and they were like, "Oh, would you?" They know what I did for a living. Like, "Oh, would you mind like sharing it on social media?" And I was like, "I don't really want to." "Oh, but it would help us generate more income." I said, "Yeah, I feel like if I do something for charity and then post it on social media, I almost feel like I'm not doing it for charity. I feel like it's going to look like I'm doing it so people go, you're a nice guy." Like sharing GoFundMes is different because if you don't share them, no one's going to like fund them. But even then, I've had stick for it. I've had stick for sharing GoFundMes. Are you trying to make it look like you're a good person? I'm like, nah, this little girl's got cancer and I'm just trying to help her family get money.
You got stick for that?
Yeah, I got stick for that. Yeah, I got the people that follow some other YouTubers who always lie about me online. Their followers consistently abuse, and I'm not blaming them because they don't make them do it. But it don't matter what I do, their people abuse me. So yeah, it's crazy. But equally, like that's their problem. It's not a me problem. Do you know what I'm saying? So you get it. But Patrick's going for it. Patrick, who has cancer, that we all help raise GoFundMe for. The people constantly go, well, where's the money gone? Show me the treatment that you're getting. And it's like, what the fuck are you challenging the man for? Like, you get this online. The world's full of weird fuckers.
And he's been showing proof. He talks about it all the time when he's going and stuff like that. So,
do you know what the weirdest thing I have with people like that? They'll say all this stuff, but they won't donate or do anything like that themselves. And then if anything like that ever happened to them, they'll expect their GoFundMe and everything to be posted and all of this help. So it's like, I don't know, it's the world, isn't it?
And that's what I found really crazy about the Rashford stuff, is what he actually did for children's school dinners and
that's when the hate started, by the way. That is when the hate started. Ever since that.
Well, because he went against the Conservatives, and that's again. But whenever you go against the establishment, you're in trouble. And whenever you expose them for things, that's when you end up being in trouble. A few more super chats here before the end, boysies. This says most media corporates are now owned by people who support the right-wing nutters, so they can get rid of any regulation to make more. So what do we expect? But be honest with you though. I'm not going to get into politics, but I think both sides are as bad as each other, if I'm being honest with you.
Yep.
We know that because we get change. We go, hey, the world's going to change. You know, oh, fuck, why is it all the same still? In fact, why has it got worse? And it's not worse because it's the new people. It's just, it's continually spiraling down, isn't it? Like Man United, no matter who our manager is, we just keep getting worse. It tells you that the manager isn't the root cause problem. But let's not get into that. When Onana asked for a raise, did you laugh on his face? Stop cherry picking the news stories for your agenda.
But that happened.
But yeah, that's he did. I think he did do that. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that was done. And yeah, you might think it isn't true, and you can challenge me on that. That's why it's an open platform. But I don't think the story coming out saying Onana asked for a pay rise after he got a pay decrease. I don't think that's the same as saying he was deliberately trying to sabotage football matches. I just don't think those two things are comparable. False equivalence, my friend. But thank you, Mr. Miyagi. Look, I want to thank everyone who's tuned into the show. I'm back live at 3:30 with Mo and Hussam for Straight Facts, which I'm very much looking forward to and cannot wait to do this afternoon. This is going to redirect you to it. So get across there now. Get the like button hit. Get it bookmarked because I'd like to see you all there at 3:30 when we go live. All 3,200 of you. That would be marvelous. K-Mac, Cow, Ash, and KJ, thank you all very, very much indeed. Thank you to everyone who's liked the video, subscribed to the channel, and shared. Get the bell notification turned on, though, now, please, as well. Until next time, take care. Goodbye, God bless, and bon voyage.